Sorry, I had to run to the bathroom. Hello. How are you all? Jürgen, you went and got some wine, did you? Well, that's good. So who's on? Tom, Dave, Super J, Toby, Paul, Scott, and ears only audio. Hello, not hardly. Hey, Phil. Hello in the UK. 3 for Parker. Hello. How are you all? You were doing marvellous. Fred and Elvis. Wyatt. Walking Air Dogs. Ben. Toby. Earlton. Live. Yes, we're live. Sorry about that. I had to use the bathroom. I just finished. We actually filmed Feedback Friday this morning. We normally do it on Thursday mornings, but our Thursday is for a bath. We just say bathroom. But anyway, yes. So, yes, we filmed it a day early. Hello, Ron. Hello, Jack. Hello, Anon again. Hello, Clint. Hello, Agnar. Hello, Daniel. Mike. Jürgen hasn't got the wine. He's just considering getting it. Derek. So where is everybody based? Oslo. Emily. Hello, Emily. How are you? Petter. Sergio. Super J. Where is everybody? Super J, what's your real name? And Anon again. Who's that? Who's the real name there? Oh, Clint, you're in Florida, about to be hit. I saw the news this morning. I saw they were getting up to 150 winds, 150 mile an hour winds. That doesn't sound like much fun to me. Martin, how are you? And Fred and Elvis. Are you Fred or are you Elvis or are you both? Justin, hey Justin. Oh, Super J. Okay, got it. Hey Rob in Oregon. Peterborough. Well, you know, as you probably know, I'm from Crookham Village, and Peterborough's not really that far. I've been through it quite a few times. M Mixing is in the Netherlands. Remind me of your name, N Mixing. Ears Only Audio, your name too. Zag is in Fredrikstad in Norway. Jürgen has opted against it. Hello, Christian. Hello, Christian. Yay. And not again is Terry. Hello, Terry. And Jürgen says he's Batman. Okay, good. Drinking. Oh, Brian's drinking Lapsang Souchong in Bakersfield. Probably the only one. But Brian, you're a lot more cultured than I am today. I've been drinking coffee from my Yellow Submarine mug that we got when we went to go and see Love. Have you all seen Love? If not, I highly recommend it. Panama City is already being destroyed. It's still 60 miles out, so not looking good for the panhandle. Hey, Corey. Hey, Wyatt. Oh, a.k.a. Mick. Wyatt's real name is Mick. Not hardly. Of course, Jay. Jürgen says, don't tell Alfred. Good day for mixing. Hurricane right now. Boom, ching. Yes, indeed. Love is amazing. Yeah, have you all seen it? I would highly recommend it. And remember, it was put together by Giles, obviously, but also with Jeff Emmerich. So it's a nice way to go and hear Jeff's work. He did go down there, and Jeff was the consultant on getting the sound in the theatre. And if you go there, wherever you sit, because of the way every seat has its own speakers, it's pretty darn amazing. The Love soundtrack is stunning. Yes, it is. It really is. Mark's in Paderborn. Hello, Mark. Yeah, it's really, really good. So, we're going to have another business conversation. And I think what I want to know is a little bit more. Wyatt Wee Wee. Oh, Wyatt Wee Wee is your is and was the stage name. I see. So, let's find out a little bit more about each other. You saw The Art of Listening. Was it good? Did you like it? Yeah, my friend Michael did that. Doing the highly glamorous task of sweeping the studio floor. Where are the interns these days? It's hard to keep interns because, you know, to do this full time, you have to like intern for like 6 months and then get paid really, really badly for a year or two. Zag is AKA Ken. yeah, so it's a lot of hard graft, and it's hard to get anybody to stick at it, you know. Blah 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 blah. So I'm just going. Oh, I'm reading. I'm going back through reading all of the comments here. Anyone want a cup of coffee while we're waiting? Said Wyatt, ready to get go. Yeah, I'll take one. Monty went to go and teach a beginning guitar class, and he's come back for live stream. Hopefully you're back, Monty. So, I want to know a little bit more. Oh, who's in Fife in Scotland? Who was that? Who's in Bonnie, Scotland? I'm sorry. Oh, Jürgen's in Munich. Did I not know that? Stallone is doing another Rambo. Wow. I did not know that. Can you do improvised spoken word rendition of Guns N' Roses' Usual Illusion Part 1 and 2 in the style of William Shatner? Oh, Toby could do that. Well, Tony, I don't know. I mean, I think that's I think people would love that. My brother was telling me about something new movie. Oh, there's a Rambo conversation going on here. I'm just trying to get caught up. 81 in Pittsburgh. Oh, and then it's me saying I'm going to the restroom. Argentina. Internships are impossible. They just don't have interns, or getting one is impossible. I mean, Cologne. I think the thing is like I get inquiries about internships, and I don't know. I don't know if these days, if an internship, everybody that's worked for me and everybody that's become successful has been an intern. But I go through a lot of interns. Not many of them stick it out. So it's like, what do you say? You know, if you can stick it out and you can be an intern and you can learn all these different things, you're going to do unbelievably well. But most people don't have the patience for it. And I was just thinking about a guy we had recently who left. And he's going to start from scratch again. And if he had been with me, if he'd stayed with me, he would be coming up in a few months on some engineering work. And now he's going to go and start back again with somebody else. It's really interesting. I don't know if I can really. I don't really know how to sort of like, you know, because I can tell them, you're a silent intern. I can tell people how it is, and I can show them. I can introduce them to guys like Phil Allen and Robin and Laura and all these people, and Brian, all these people that have won Grammys and have started off as interns with me. And I can say they all stuck it out and they were here like 2 to 5 years each. Or I can show them all the ones that didn't stick it out and are now not doing anything. Why did he leave? Well, he left because he wasn't getting it quick enough. But the problem is in the first week he was talking like that. In the first week he was saying that he wanted to do engineering and he wanted to be sitting here and all this kind of stuff, and that was just too soon. So he was with us like a month and a half and it wasn't quick enough for him. Yes, Alistair, you can ask a question. That's what we're here for. Fred and Elvis said, I had 2 years of crappy jobs before I landed a good position. Yeah. So Scott asked, what if he goes through Blackbird Studio Schools? Do they get a better shot? I think doing schooling proves that you are more committed if you do a long-term course. I do think that that's a good idea. But I think most intern positions around here only accept full-time students. Here we have the questions. So we're going to go through those as well. Emily says that most intern positions only accept full-time students. I think that's true. Do you know why? Because legally, legally you can take an intern from a school because it's part of their work. If you take an intern that isn't part of that, you can get into trouble if they decide to then say that, you know, you should have paid them. It's a tough one, you know, because the problem for internships is interns are useful for doing things like runs and doing things that would maybe take you away from a paid work. They're useful for that, but actually when it comes down to it, a lot of times you spend more time training somebody, costing you more than they're actually worth. Does that sound sort of like, you know, if I spend a long time showing people stuff, which is fine, but then what happens is they leave, all you've done is train them for free. You've basically shown them how to do the job. So I don't take on interns unless I know that they're going to potentially become an employee. I don't pay interns initially, no. I take them on to see what they're doing, and then I always tell people they start working for free, then paid really, really bad, then really bad, and then okay, and then good, and then pretty good, and then great. That's kind of the pay structure. It's like work for free, learn some stuff, make really bad money, get better money. It's like it's not an on-off situation. You don't intern, because there's so much that we do with Produce Like a Pro, we're doing the Pro Mix Academy, and we're quite frankly still producing engineering and mixing records, songwriting, playing on stuff. You know, there's so much. But I would say with all of you, you have to have the passion for it, or else you'll get bored. Yeah, I think it's not even so much. I do agree with that. Not even so much getting bored. It's more about, for me, it's more about them wanting to get into a paid position a little bit quicker than I really can. My question is, how much should I be charging as a recording engineer with limited experience per hour, per track, and how much? I mean, when you're talking about an engineer, if you're talking about having your own studio with your own equipment, then you should charge a rate that really reflects that. So if you have a decent amount of equipment, what I mean is like at least a 2-input I/O, a nice condenser microphone, not necessarily really expensive, but maybe a $500-ish condenser. You have a room that's good enough to do vocals in, and maybe you've had some treatment in, you have a decent pair of speakers. Again, could be the Callies at $300. You know, if you have a decent-ish beginner setup but you have the ears and you're willing to record vocals, I don't know, even in the Midwest, I would hope that you could charge $25 an hour, you know, and the equivalent, like $20 an hour. I would have thought that, you know, you could charge slightly more than the average wage when you're first starting off. If it's $15 an hour in America now is supposedly, you know, considered to be a good average wage, then I think charging $20 for you and your studio to record vocals, etc., should be, I believe, the beginning price that you should be charging. Because obviously you're self-employed and you have gear to maintain and you want to acquire stuff. So, I mean, that's really what we talk about. It's like if you want to work a 40-hour week and make $20 or $25 an hour, you're going to be working more than 40 hours a week. But, you know, you're going to get to a stage where you can make about $3,000 a month, which is like the beginning. That's where I think you should be starting off. And I don't think it's asking too much to make $20, $25 an hour, even as a relatively inexperienced engineer. I think that's what I'm hearing from people. Obviously, you want to get towards the $40 or $50 an hour as quickly as possible. And that's where you build your resume. But you should, and with the training of what we're doing here and the sharing experience, that's what I would hope that everybody here could do, is charge for a personal studio and with their services about $40 or $50 an hour. You know, and then it means that if you're working 8 to 10 hours a day, you've got the potential to make about $400 a day, and suddenly you're in a proper middle class to upper middle class wages. I mean, that's, you know, that's about $8,000 to $10,000 a month. I mean, that's where I would want all of you to be aiming as engineers with your own personal, you know, studios. I think people are hoping to make $65,000 to $85,000 a year in America as a sort of a middle class thing. I would hope that we can get you guys there pretty quickly. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, Monty, it's definitely very important to to hang around people that have a really, really good set of experiences. I think that's the most thing. $20 an hour is cheap, but the question came from Clint. The question came from somebody who said that, you know, that how would they, as somebody who's just starting off, an inexperienced engineer, I would say the entry point would still be $20 an hour. That is the entry point. I think $40 to $50 an hour is what you should be charging when you have built your experience. But we're talking about the entry level. That to me is like, that's my feeling. Because, you know, you're going to put a lot more time and energy into that, and you are. I do charge by the project, but I figure out how long it's going to be. I ask a lot of questions of the artists. I listen to the music. I meet with them, you know, and then when I've done that, then I decide, okay, this is going to teach me something. You know what I mean? You know, this is gonna cost me X number of dollars to do, so I need to charge for it. Those rates are impossible here in Argentina. Well, Christian, what's the average wage in Argentina? If it's the equivalent of $10 an hour, then charge 15. You know, I mean, you just need to charge a little bit above when you're first starting, because you want to get paid. Yeah, exactly. Figure out what the local equivalent is. That's what Simon's saying. Yeah, exactly. And as Scott is saying, the other alternative is to do one song for free and then charge after that. That is a good way to do two things. It's a good way to build resume, because you can work with really good artists that you might not be able to get hold of, you know, that if you're charging. Even if you're charging $50 an hour, isn't the reality you're going to be working less than 40 hours a week, so your hourly should cover your downtime as well? I don't know. I mean, 40 hours a week. I never, right from the get-go of me starting, I never worked less than 60 or 80 hours a week. So I don't really know. Paul charges £25 an hour in his local studio. I think that's good. Or in the local studio. I think that's a good starting off point. You know, I do think, you know, I think that one frustration being self-employed is a good chunk of your hours you work aren't billable. It quickly turns 40 into 50 or 60. Exactly. That's where maybe having an intern will help you. I think that's a really, really good point. You know what I mean? I ran a non-musical business for 20 years. Be realistic about billable time. 50% of your time is billable. You're doing great to start. Yep. That's basically it. Rob is really kind of doing it. Monty says $40 to $100 an hour is common here for the pro studios. Yeah, I think so. When it comes to a studio, yes. And then you have to figure out what level of assistant or engineer you've got working with you. Those are also really important things. You know what I mean? We have to really remember that. $20 an hour is cheap. Clint was saying, oh, that's going back to that. Yes, but we're talking about entry level. At my point in life, I just want to record and produce my own music and find the best way to get my music heard. Making money is great, but making music is what makes me happy, not the money. I agree entirely. These are these two things. For rehearsal rooms, it's $5 an hour, says Christian. But what about recording? I mean, that's devaluation, inflation here is not helping. Yes, I've been hearing it's going absolutely crazy. It seems to be. It's a shame because I know about 10 years ago, Argentina was growing really fast, its economy. I presume it's corruption and stuff. It's very unfortunate. I'm not entirely sure. I haven't followed it enough recently. So, okay, so if it's $5 an hour for rehearsal, Christian, I think typically a small rehearsal room here is about $12.50 to $15. So it seems like it's about a third. So if we're talking about entry level at $20, you're probably talking about $7 to $10 equivalent. So what about income tax? Well, basically, Paul, I mean, it's if you're self-employed, you're doing your taxes at the end of the year based on the expenses. And you can obviously factor in part of your rent or part of your pay. You know, you can take a payment towards it. You can factor in a lot of stuff. So that's the other good thing about doing this as a self-employed person. you'll be able to write off quite a few things, so you'll actually do a little better. Hey, Michael. You expressed the point much better than I did, said Robin. Yeah, that's the truth. I mean, I've never worked less than 60 to 80 hours a week doing music right from the get-go. Because as everybody's saying, you know, and Monty says he sets 25% of his income for taxes. The owners here I work in Bakersfield charge $55 an hour and can't get it booked. The place is stunning but empty most of the time. Yeah, that's... Look, I've owned and co-owned multiple studios. And I will say, with only a few exceptions, studios don't get booked. People get booked. So what studios need to do is cultivate their engineers and their producers that work there. And that's one of the biggest things. And the reason why studios don't do that is they get nervous, because they feel like if they push, like, who said that? Okay, Brian. So Brian, are you an, this is a good discussion. So Brian, are you an engineer that works at the studio? So basically what happens is they should have the Brian McLaughlin page on their website. You should have a Facebook business page, should be talking about all of your accomplishments, all of the mixing that you do, all of the engineering, all of this kind of stuff. They should be pushing you, and you should be pushing you, because people work with people. They don't work with studios. Now, people come to me and ask me where I want to work, and they don't even ask me. They just say, I want you to produce the stuff. And I go, if you have the budget, then I say, let's go to Sunset Sound. And of course they fall in love, because they walk into Sunset Sound and they see the Doors and the Stones and Led Zeppelin and all these amazing records they grew up listening to were recorded there, and we go in the same rooms and they love it. And they love the mic collection, they love everything about it. However, they chose to work with me. Nobody's calling the house engineers there. Jeff Neal, as great as he is not getting that many calls. Now, he's getting a little bit more because we featured him in videos. He wrote the other day that since doing the Sunset Sound one, the Van Halen, he's been getting a lot of calls specifically for him. But that is it. Now, the problem is, Brian, is like studios have been making this mistake because they get nervous. They feel like if they build you up, then you might just go and work somewhere else or work from home. It has to be mutually beneficial. So basically, they need to help you. You need to track stuff there. They need to pay you enough that you stay at the studio. It's tough. If they're paying you $10 or $15 an hour and you're bringing in the clients, that's tough. So there's got to be a dynamic that works. You know, so what happens for me is when I go to Sunset Sound, for instance, I'm charging my fee. Let's just say I'm charging $1,500 or $3,000, you know, to produce something. Then the studio's paid on top. So it really comes, you know, it's simple logistics, but you need to find a place where, I've just got to tell you, it really is about people. As great as a studio can be, you know, an artist is going to walk in there and feel lost. They're going to walk in there, going to feel lost, and they're going to be like, where, you know, what do I do with all this gear? So they're relying on a person. So what does that mean? They're relying on the assistant or the engineer that's there. So you can see, no matter what you do, you know, it is definitely a people business. Clint says it would be nice to take a portable recording setup into a band's rehearsal hall and record them, but this would probably take me 4 hours just to set up a mic, everyone. No, it would take you a lot less than that. If you had an 8-input system and you dialed it in, you'd be able to do that pretty darn quickly. Because really in a live situation like that, you're just trying to do one thing and record it. Yes, you will be able to watch this back later, Alistair. So remember, even in that situation, you really... or specifically in that situation, you just want to record and not get any distortion, any clipping. If you're not getting any clipping, you'll be in a really good position. That really is all you should be trying to ascertain. I would not, you know, get yourself into that place. I wouldn't worry too much about, you know, trying to get the perfect recording, because it's just not going to work that way. It's going to happen. So Christian says average is about 15 or 20 an hour for studios. $1 equals 40. Blah blah blah. Okay, typically, so it's basically what we were talking about. So for you at home, Christian, with your own studio, 7 to 10 is going to work out. I don't know what that is specifically in Argentinian currency. Great, Brian. So, Brian, I would definitely build yourself up. Build up your own profile. I think what we need to do here to really help each other in our academy is start sharing our own pages, help each other out, so basically create your own Facebook business page. Don't do your name and put official after it, please. That looks silly to do that. But just like, have a Brian McLaughlin, engineer page, or Brian McLaughlin producer page. Go to the academy page, start sharing your business Facebook pages and interact with each other, leave comments, rate each other, help each other out. I think that's really what we want here. I think we're looking at that. Rob's going. Thanks, Rob. Thanks for your participation. I appreciate it. So, and thanks for the... Yeah, I'm a corporation as well. It's definitely something that once you start earning decent money, you should be doing. Could be you need to be more flexible with how you work. Also, bear in mind that some bands don't want to pay you. Maybe you don't work with them. Yeah, there's a little bit of that, definitely. It's like it's like, is the band really good and you just want to get a song and you'll do it for free just to add to your resume? Sure. It's balancing these things. It's about like working for a song for free for your resume. Don't do an album. Don't do an EP for free. Don't do stuff like that. Just, the depreciation, what concerns me. Thanks, Andrew. Sure, engineers are fixed cost for studio. How long does it typically take you to mix a song? How much additional time are in producing? Double. The mixing process, if I've recorded it, is a lot quicker than the production process because I've recorded it how I want to hear it. If I'm mixing other people's stuff, I might spend 3 days on the first song, but then after that it can get complicated. Yeah, you can do. Yeah, you do need to get like a business manager or a tax or an accountant when you start building your business. That's something else we can talk about. How much do you rely on music theory? I don't know much about music theory. It's something I should study up on. Hey, Walking Air Dogs. I use it all the time, but I'm self-taught. I'm not like Rick, our friend Rick Beato, who went and did a degree and a PhD, and he basically is a professor. He was teaching music and he did some production stuff, but he's essentially 99% a music professor that has a YouTube channel that did some production for a few years. So he's kind of got a bit of a basis in it. But when I met him, he was still teaching full time. He's a few years older than me, not many, but a few years older than me. And he had started in like the early mid-2000s to do production stuff, and he did it for a few years. But the thing about him is he's grounded as a jazz professor, jazz teacher, and is very highly educated. However, I think a lot of his really, really advanced music theory is wonderful and challenging and amazing, but not what you need. You don't need to know it. You don't have to know it for doing rock and roll. If we had Brian May in the room, who's created some of the most intricate and interesting music ever, he wouldn't know half of what Rick is talking about. But I'd much rather be Brian May. So I think let's sort of think about that. Yes. So my point is like, yes, understand some theory, but understand enough to make great music. Don't let it hold you back. Yes, Simon, we're going to be here. We're going to be here for at least an hour and a half. Okay, I'm going to go. I'm going to go and go through the questions of the people that aren't here, and then we'll come back here so that when they watch, they can see the questions. There's only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's like about 8 or 9 here. So Ricky says mixing metal and hard rock. This is Ricky Hunt. Would it benefit to sidechain automate the snare drum? I have trouble in parts getting my drums to cut through, but in other parts they cut through great. Or should I automate guitars and bass instead? Interesting. Now, I do often use, you know, I do often automate and sidechain stuff. However, I know what you're saying. I wouldn't personally automate the snare drum out of heavy guitars. I think that's what you're implying, like to duck the heavy guitars. Here's my second cup of coffee. And it is, oh, it's the left-handed mug. It's on the other side. So only the people drinking it can tell that it's a BAE mug. That's pretty funny. The left-handed mug. Okay, so I personally wouldn't do that. I wouldn't take the snare drum and duck it out of heavy guitars. It's not to say that it's not to say that it wouldn't work. But I want my guitars to be consistently heavy. I know what you're saying. For me, it's like, use LCR in metal. Use LCR. Have one heavy guitar on this side, another heavy on that side, and put your bass, your kick, and your snare firmly down the middle. Make it come down the middle, and you shouldn't have that much of a problem. If you are having a problem not getting the snare to cut through, first of all, turn it up. I mean, turn it up. Now, if the snare is really big, fat, and tubby, you're not going to hear it against huge metal detuned guitars, because all of those low mids in those detuned guitars and that low end are going to suck up and eat up that snare. By all means, put the body in it, but you'll barely notice it. Don't not use it, but if you're relying on a big boofy snare, so my point is you need it to cut. You need to add some punch to it. So having a slightly slower attack time will give you that pa, 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 pa sound that you want. And it doesn't necessarily have to be the whole snare sound, but it could come up underneath. So if you have a boof, boof snare, a tubby snare that you like, then bring up a punchy pa, 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 pa underneath, put those two together, you might start getting all your sound. I think a lot of it's to do with it. Also, I find personally when mixing really heavy music that I love a snare that goes going, has got a huge ring to it as well. The ring gets soaked up by the heavy guitars. It completely gets soaked up. However, it helps the snare cut through. And once more, don't be afraid to use a lot of reverb on the snare. It doesn't have to be massively long, but enough of it to just kind of, because that reverb will be soaked up so quickly. You could put a ton of reverb on a snare and heavy guitars and barely notice it. Christian says, I'm talking with two really good local bands to start recording a song for free next month. Thanks for your advice on the last Q&A. Yeah, do one song. Pace yourself. Don't do more than 2 or 3 days on the song. Don't get into a situation where you're working for 2 weeks on one song. You know what I mean? Because you're gonna create resentment. You want to enjoy what you're doing. You don't want to get into a place where you are working so much that you're that you really start to hate what you're doing. So anyway, hopefully Ricky, that answers it. It says, but in other parts it cuts through great. So yes, if it's got areas where the drums are great, get that sound to be aggressive like we were talking about. And then if there's other points where the production is less, just turn the snare down. It really should come down that you get a snare that works great when the guitars are going full barrel, full ball, hitting like that. And then, yes, automate it down where you don't need it. It's a little bit like with drum sounds quite often. They'll do like drum breaks, like boom, you know, like this huge fill, and you push the room mics up specifically for that area. But when the rest of everything else is, you don't push them as hard. It's like, then you create this illusion when you hear the drums of this massive drum sound that doesn't need to necessarily be going. You might push other elements. This is a big thing about great mixing, and it started really obviously in the world of SSLs, where you could automate stuff and flying faders, or at least fader automation. That's not necessarily flying. These aren't flying, but they're VCAs and they're automated. So what I can do is I can push up drums like the rooms to when the drums are audible on their own, just, you know, there's hardly anything in, to get this huge drum sound. And then when the metal guitars come in, I might push up the ringing snare super loud, because it's getting soaked up, the more punchy snare, and it creates You know what I mean? But your ears have just heard like 4 bars or 2 bars of big roomy drums, and it convinces you that's what you're hearing for the rest of it. So be sort of cognizant of that don't be afraid to automate. Don't be afraid to automate plugins, volumes, EQs, compression and stuff, and using it so it benefits the drum sound in different areas. Hopefully that long explanation helps you, Ricky. Matt Graham says, is there a benefit to committing with pre-compressor DAW, in that order, you know, recording with a pre, then a compressor DAW, versus pre going straight to the DAW, then using a compressor after the fact? Good question. I do love being able to print how I want to hear it. The reason why we came up with the 1173, which hopefully I know a lot of you have bought already, but the reason why we came up with that is because Michael Stucker and I set about to produce a mic pre which sounded as close to a 1073 as possible, but at a fraction of a cost, and then a compressor that sounded as close to an 1176 but as a fraction of a cost. Michael found 2 transformers in England that were amazing sounding, and we sourced them so we could have some British components in it and still keep it down. So the reason why I'm talking about it is not as a sales gimmick, but just to say I put my what do they say, your money where your mouth is. I wanted an inexpensive, relatively, look, it's $1,200, which is not free, but when you consider a nice 1073 is $3,500, a good one, and a good 1176 is $1,500, that's $5,000 worth of stuff. So yes, we're never going to have exactly the same components, but we came up with this one that was close. So the reason why I'm talking about it is I do like to commit with compression. Now, a lot of kids coming up, and I mean this, actual kids, I mean guys and girls coming up from scratch, don't have access to this kind of equipment. And so I recently-ish, I think it was about a year ago, had somebody want me to get like a new up-and-coming mixer to mix a song. So I sent them a song, and they emailed me back the next day and said, do you have the uncompressed files? For real. Because they had never, ever received a vocal with compression on it. Let that sink in for a second. So that's sort of where we're at. So they're used to hearing a DI guitar, a vocal that's just gone straight into a input on an interface. And this guy, it was a guy, had some decent credits. Now, I had actually gone. Don't worry about the dad duties. I hear you, Mike. Welcome. This is available. You can go back and watch it afterwards. So what is interesting is I think that's going to become more and more prevalent, that people, as interfaces are becoming better, not for the digital aspect. The actual digital conversion in most interfaces, frankly, is better than it's been on the most expensive ones of 10 years ago. I would much rather have my... Oh, it's hard to pick it up. Hopefully I didn't cut it off. I'd much rather have my Audient ID14 or ID4, which is sitting down there, which I'm talking through. I feel like I want to pick up the camera, but if I pick it up, I'll probably never put it back on again. But I'd much rather be using those than using an 888. Remember the 888s? For real. So 888s made records in the late 90s and early 2000s. I think that these IOs, these ID4s and ID14s, which are, I promise, sitting down here, I'd much rather be using those than any 888. So that's where we're at. So now it just comes down to how good is the mic pre. Now, you and I have heard me say two things. I like Audient as a product because, and there are other products that are good out there, don't get me wrong, because I like the mic pre's. And Matt McGlynn and I talked about how as long as you don't go above about 70-75% on a mic pre on some of the cheaper units, you're going to get a really good, clean signal that, frankly, is going to be hard to beat on even some of the most expensive equipment. I have a Lavery Blue, which is the old DB Technologies. I mix through that. So does Spike Stent, so does Mark Endert. Two of arguably the 3 or 4 best mixers in the world. They mix to those. I love the way they sound. There's something specific about the way they sound. But it's a very expensive piece of 2-input kit. A lot of the times we're recording records with either 192s, the Apogees, the Lavery, or the Audience. They're all equally getting used these days. And I'm not sitting there going, oh no, I used this, I should have used that. It doesn't come into play. So this long explanation is to say, yes, you definitely can on something as cheap as an ID4 and ID14, use the mic pre and then also use a compressor afterwards. However, if you want the flexibility of something like the 1173, which Barry Rudolph loves and calls a color box, it's going to give you a lot more options to shape the sound on the way in. So my long answer to say, Matt, is it depends on your production style. Are you recording and like creating it after the fact or more in the fact? It is a little difficult for me to always be looking at my DAW and rebalancing my plugins. I'd much rather print something, move on. That's just me. However, that isn't the only way to work. Paul Lawson says the first one he had 888s. They were great. Clint says he loves his Focusrite i8 18 i8, and he can add more inputs with the ADAT. Did a blind test the other day a few years ago of an old 12,000 setup versus my 2,000 setup, both 16 channels, and most, including me, preferred the cheap setup. Yeah, I agree, Martin. The thing is, we've talked about this a lot, and I'll keep reiterating. I'm sure everybody here knows the chip that is inside the ID4 is the same chip that's inside of the most expensive IOs out there. That everybody uses the same chip. It comes down to the architecture around it. I like Audient. I think they sound great. I think their mic pre's sound really, really good. They use the same technology in their cheap mic pre's as they do in their expensive ones. Okay, let's move on because I'll keep hammering home the same stuff. Anita asks, with regards to licensing ad streaming, could you do a streaming platform first, then go to a PRO later, or should that be done at roughly the same time? Could you go with a streaming platform first? And I'm not entirely sure what you mean. I mean, if you're talking about, I would always register with a PRO. I would always do that first. I think whichever way you're talking about it, always, once your song is released and it is out there, it's fair game. So get it registered first. If you can get the ISRC codes as well, then wherever you place it, and you are placing it, you can put in the ISRC codes when asked. And if anybody ever uses your song without your express permission, you can fall back. You can say, here it is. It's registered properly. Here's the ISRC code. I honestly would always register it. Always register first. Depending on, even if there's options, I would always do that. Personally, I would never give my rights up to CD Baby. I'd never give up to any of those companies. I would always control it. If you're streaming for your own YouTube channel, you don't need a third-party company like CD Baby or any of these companies that are claiming to collect revenue for you. You can do it directly with YouTube. You don't need anybody inserted in the middle. Make sure you stay away from that. CD Baby, their business model is, what do you call it, the micro thing. All they're trying to do is get a penny from you times 10 million people. That's all they're trying to do. They're not going to help you. They have absolutely no advantage. They give you no advantage by inserting themselves in there. Do not, when you're opening up and you want to upload your songs and they say, would you like us to collect this? Go, no, 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 and no. Because you will stream your songs yourself. As simple as that. Because if they start, you know, when are you ever going, if somebody decides to take your song and stick it into their video, unless it was the biggest video in the world, it's going to make a few pennies. But you just gave up all of your rights to collect on your own music and own 100%. The best person to promote you at your stage, at anybody's stage, unless they have a big label and a big publishing company and big management and lots of people, the best person to promote your own stuff is you. You are going to promote your own stuff better, so you need to own it. So if you've got a Facebook, which is going to start collecting streaming money and ads soon. If you've got YouTube and you are promoting your own music, you need to be collecting your own music, not a third party. Don't give that rights away to CD Baby because they make you believe that they're going to help you. They're not. Their business model is to get 10 million people all giving them $1 or $2 a month. It's a great business model for them. However, they're just participating in your earnings and taking it away. You don't need to. You can go directly to YouTube and just tick the box that you want to monetize. Simple as that. Simple as that. It's not, it doesn't need, you don't need to have those companies involved. And when you're first starting, don't even monetize. Because what you want to do is you want people to hear your music. Because it's going to be much better for you to have 10,000 people hear your song rather than 10,000 people that clicked away because a Viagra ad came up or something stupid like that. A whiskey ad, you know, and somebody's like, I don't want to watch a whiskey ad. I don't want to watch hotels.com ad. And they'll just click away and go to a different song. When we first launched our YouTube channel, we didn't have any advertising for a year and a half. And the only time adverts were ever put on there was because we used another copyrighted material and somebody forced their ad on it and we just had to think of it. What do I think of CD Baby? I don't think of CD Baby as my answer. I don't see the necessity for them. Their ex-owner once made a boast that 99.9% of his customers sold between 2 to 5 CDs a year and cost $99, and he sort of joked at it, and I hated that because you see what we do here. This is real interaction. If I was to charge my time out to talk to people, it would be everybody's yearly long thing. You know how people are that do marketing. They're all like, oh, I'm $1,000 an hour to talk. It's like, you can see, there's no cynicism in what we do. What we do is be really, really blunt about this. There's no cynicism in this. This is what's great about this is we're communicating and we're sharing information and creating real community. One of the reasons for having a price point that's super cheap for people to get in here is to keep the trolls out. Trolls don't like to pay. And just having a bit of a paywall, even though it's low, keeps most of the trolls out. We've barely had anybody be in here and be negative. We do have other people with fake accounts come in here to try and figure out how to copy our community and all this kind of stuff, but they're not going to be able to do it because what you are is beyond this. You are all really, really good people. You're all talking to each other. You're all helping each other out. So avoid the micro businesses, that kind of way of just kind of everything automated and stuff like that. I'm drawn to this. I'm always drawn to creating real community, being involved in real community. I actually like DistroKid. Well, the thing is about DistroKid is like, I don't know if I need them to collect my streaming money. Well, to make $20 streaming to do it, you'd probably, of my Google ads, in a good month with close to 1 million streams, you might make $1,100. So maybe 1,000 for 1,000. So 1,000 times. So at what point? So the yearly fee of $20, you're gonna have to get, you're gonna have to get into the tens of thousands of streams on your songs to get your $20 back. So it's a catch-22, but you don't need to pay $20. You can just do a direct thing with everybody. You don't need to pay $20. I'm not entirely sure. The business model is great. Now, I do like DistroKid. Why do I like DistroKid? Well, Stefan, the reason why there's no downsides to not monetizing at first, because the point is like, even $1,100 for close to between 600 to 1 million stream video YouTube videos a month, to get to that point, it's pretty. You understand what I mean? It's like, if you're at that point, great, but that means that you've got a lot of people coming back to watch your songs and all this kind of stuff. For most people, that's not going to happen. If you put a song up that got 300,000 YouTube views in a year, that's actually pretty darn good. But 300 YouTube views is going to be $400 if you're lucky, $300 or $400 spread over a year on monetization. And what would you rather have? 300,000 people watch it, or 300,000 people be put off the fact that you have a commercial and you're an unknown artist? To me, I don't see the advantage when you're first starting your YouTube career of putting any ads on. Once people, because it's not where you're going to be making your money. You're trying to get yourself out there. So I don't see the advantage in it. I see the advantage in businesses like CD Baby making $50 off of you by putting an ad on the front, but I see it as a way to push people away when I'm trying to get my stuff out there. Like I said, it was over a year and a half before we ran any ads, and I did it reluctantly because YouTube wanted me to run ads because then they would help pushing stuff. Yes, all direct, exactly, Emily. All Spotify and everybody will all eventually take things directly. I've heard that only 70% of sales are for CDs. I'm surprised it's that much. I didn't even know it was that much. Jay says I treat trolls better than you do, than he does. Yeah, well, sometimes I realize I've had people that come across as trolls. I treat them with respect, and then the trolling disappears. But I do like, the reason why I like DistroKid is because I like the fact that as you as a producer, an engineer, a mixer, if you songwriter, if you work at a royalty rate with your artist, you can go and upload it to DistroKid and have it assigned to you straight away, and you don't have to wait for them to pay you. DistroKid will do it for you. Yeah, that is correct. Petra's saying, yeah, Spotify is going to soon let you upload your stuff directly. But DistroKid is the one I trust the most. CD Baby and TuneCore, their business models are outdated, antiquated, and are all just about, they're all built on a little bit of cynicism. They sell this idea that you are going to be in a shop front. You go to CD Baby and it has like the latest releases, and they give this illusion that you're putting your music into a store. You're not. And they charge a lot of money, and their profitability is incredibly high because they make their money up front by that $99 fee. They're not making any money from selling music. Now, if they were making money off the selling the music and that was where their profit was, I would be welcoming it because I would think to myself, they're doing their job really well. They're helping you, but they're not. They're just another way of inserting themselves in. DistroKid on the other way, yeah, the community is you guys. Thank you, Mark. It is. It's this incredible community we have here. Okay, we've talked enough about that. I'll move on. Maybe we'll come back to it. Mitchell Thielen says, I ran into Fiverr.com. Do you know this service, and what do you think about it? I have found a couple of people on Fiverr. I think it's a good idea. I keep thinking that about our community and how we should all be finding these services within each other. I don't want to put in a place where we create resentment, i.e. somebody says, would you mix my song, and then hates it. I don't want to get into that place, but I do like the idea of here we have a community of people that there's probably some really great editors, some vocal tuners, some compers, some drum musicians, some bass players, guitar players. There's a great community in here. I would say let's all utilize each other. If you're going to Fiverr to get somebody to edit vocals, put up a little bit of a, just create a forum in here for services. And if somebody comes into our community and then just starts advertising themselves as a mixer, I don't want that. But what I do want is the ability, none of you do, the ability for us to all reach out to each other in our community, because we want to grow everybody in here, the 11 or 1,200 people in here, as thought leaders. I want you all, and you all are already thought leaders, that go out and create your own community around you. People start coming to you because you're sharing information and growing from each other, not just from me, but from each other, and taking this information and being able to then give it out. The stuff we're talking about here, people charge $2,500 in seminars to talk about this stuff. This is a big deal. This is something that we, and I get to sit in rooms with heads of labels and A&R guys and big musicians and famous this, that, and the other every day, and then bring that information to you. That's the whole point here. Yeah, Freethful Parker says, drummer here, I'll do free session work. So yeah, that's it. This is that kind of thing. Let's help each other out. Let's grow together, because this community is all going to be about, you are all mini thought leaders. Whether you believe it or not, you are. Whether you're just learning the basics of how to plug in a microphone and you're the beginner of all beginners, it doesn't matter. You've already taken one step above and you've already learned. You're not listening to, you're not in other communities where it's a bunch of regurgitated stuff from people who don't make money in music. I love some of these other communities, but most of them are run by people who have never actually been paid to make music in their life. But they're really good marketing people. What we're here is we try to do a bit of both. We're trying to get better at marketing ourselves, but what we are really doing is sharing real world experiences about how to make music, how to get paid, and how to get your music published using PROs, the best kind of ways to get music out there. I'm going to talk to DistroKid about doing some stuff. I actually am a co-owner of Mondo Tunes. And the reason why I was involved in that initially was because they were using Ingrooves, which is the largest digital distributor in the world. And so I liked that because it got into places that other people couldn't get into, and other platforms that nobody else was talking about. But the DistroKid business model seems to really make sense to me. And they haven't paid me. Emily says, how reputable is AllMusic? It is completely reputable. I have an album that shows up there with the wrong credits. You have to write to them, and you have to write to them about 8 times. They are so inundated with problems. Yeah, still the same over a year later. Is this something Sound Credit would fix? I'm not sure I want to pay $100 a year for a database to make sure my credits show through. I think, though, AllMusic is the best one out there. It is, unfortunately, because they build up with they've done a bit of everything. They are creditable. They've turned themselves into a creditable business model. It's a tough one. It's a little nepotism. A guy that started it, like his like nephew and blah blah blah, is like a chief writer there. It's a little difficult, because it's probably another one of those kind of online businesses that I was just joking about before, where it's just like they started it, but not really from a background of being musical people. But it's grown into something quite credible. And I think a lot of our business now comes down to the last man standing. Who can keep going, who can keep evolving. And it is the only place I send people. If you're, like, for instance, if you've got like an online community, somebody's pushing you towards to go somewhere, look up the people involved. Go to AllMusic, see what they've done. Find out, are they really proper engineers and mixers, or are they just like you, learning as they go, but making really slick videos? It's like, yeah, Glenn likes DistroKid. I think everybody likes DistroKid. Thank you, Ron. That's the point. This really is. We are trying to give you really priceless information. And with no bias, because I don't have, like I said, I co-own, I have a small piece, a couple of % of Mondo Tunes, but I prefer DistroKid. So I'm not really buttering my bread on the right side. To me, it's like, I've got to build trust here. If I'm going to recommend Audient or the Cali speakers or Lewitt microphones or Mac DSP plugins or whatever else I do, it better be good, because it's going to stick with you guys. And you guys and girls are going to go out and talk to the world and say, I trust Warren. I came into his academy. I saved hundreds of dollars buying Lewitt microphones. They sound amazing. Therefore, I trust him. I have to put my money where my mouth is. So yes, unfortunately, Emily, it is trustworthy. AllMusic is the best. And yes, they've spelled my name wrong. They've messed up stuff. I've written to them 100 times and they haven't changed it. It's a tough one. You know, it's tough. But I trust it because it has about 75% of my credits on there. It's got 300 or 400 credits on there. So I trust it. And I know that if 75% of my credits on there, then if I check somebody out, 75% of their credits are on there. Sheila says, can a career as a re-recording mix engineer remotely, or do I have to move to LA or New York? Sheila, I think that you should be able to work remotely. I really do.
The Facebook forums produce like a pro. Students are helpful, but joining the academy is a game changer. Yeah, thank you. Well, yeah, the students page is good, but we keep the real information on the academy page. It's only for academy members. You know, and I really do strongly believe that we need to do this every week, even if we're inundated with or repeating ourselves. Doing this, Jay says you can only sell what you believe in if you believe in it. It isn't selling exactly. I mean, we've been a game changer for Lewitt. We've really, really helped Lewitt immensely. It's very hard to break into America with new products, especially in a country where Shure microphones. I mean, Shure SM57 is an industry standard for a very good reason. It is an amazing microphone. Is it the best microphone ever made? Maybe. It's the most versatile microphone ever made. Is it like, can other people make the same microphone? Yeah. Everybody can make a dynamic microphone like that. But it was a game changer when it came out, and now at $100 and years later, it's still the most versatile microphone ever in every studio. So if I'm a new microphone manufacturer, how am I going to make a dynamic microphone that competes? It doesn't matter if mine's 10 or 5% better. It doesn't matter. A 57 has already been proven to do everything. So, and the same thing with a lot of condensers. I just believe that Lewitt just needed a little bit of a showcase, and we showcased them. And when I say we, I mean you as well, because you are talking about these kind of companies. If Cali come along, and these are guys that come from JBL, they stayed for a year after Samsung bought it, and then realized that they weren't going to get heard with new design concepts. So their chief designer Charles left with a couple of other guys, like 2 or 3 other guys, and started Cali Audio. So now they're making what JBL should have made at $300. So I went down. I have been involved with this company now for about 9 months. I went down. I heard the prototypes. I got involved. I heard them. I loved it. I sat at Westlake and listened to music I produced, listened to music I engineered, listened to music I mixed, listened to my favorite music in that environment, compare and contrast with other speakers, and realized that for $300, $298, I can stand behind this. I get involved. Yamaha are bringing out a brand new guitar. I have been down 4 times to be involved in the prototype. It has gone, it's changed shape, it's changed design, it's changed pickup stuff. So when that guitar comes out, I'm going to champion it because I've got involved. We're trying to design a guitar that's a utilitarian guitar. I don't get a piece of it, no percentage of it. But I will talk about it because I'm involved in it and I care. I want to create and be involved with products that are game-changing. Because, you know, Joey talked about the democratization of the music industry. I've been saying that for 4 years now. And it's nice that other people are talking about it, but we've known since we started it, and everybody here, you've all known that that is what is going on. And this breaking down barriers is really, really good. Yes, Emily, you're going to have a frustrating time with All Music. I've written to them 50 times about it, and I've had the interns write for me, and nothing changes. I think all I can say is that when you do an album, submit it yourself and make sure it's submitted properly for their review, and clearly define and write down everything clearly. Take the lead. Everybody here, get your music up on All Music, send in CDs, send in really good written down liner notes, everything. Do it the best you possibly can, and that is the only way you're really going to be able to, like, not guarantee, there's no guarantee, but increase the chances, because a lot of the time somebody who submitted it may have submitted it wrong. Okay, especially the Lewitt LCT Pure has taken the vocal sound of my recordings to the next level. That's really great to hear. Yeah, that LCT 140, Christian, so cheap. It's so inexpensive. Yeah. And the fact that it doesn't have like huge amount of lows and low mids is great. It makes my acoustic guitar sound better in the mix. Well, at the moment, we're talking to SonarWorks about doing a discount, just like we do with Lewitt and Mac DSP, about doing a discount for all of the SonarWorks people. So you can buy it, but you buy it for a discount. Okay, next up. Petter Matson says, what is the best place to have your song portfolio for everyone to see? I do use SoundCloud, but I'd rather use Spotify. The problem with Spotify is that you need to use an artist name and not a company name. In that case, it would be really good to gather all kinds of songs from different genres under one artist name. Well, your artist name could be your producer name, couldn't it? You know what I mean? Is it more professional to divide the songs based on genre? I do different genres from pop to death metal. Well, okay, I think that the way to do it is simple as this. Look, there's a lot of criticism of SoundCloud. There is. People criticize SoundCloud and say it's an MP3 format, and I get it. But if I listen to something on SoundCloud or listen to something on YouTube, the difference is absolutely enormous. SoundCloud sounds 100 times better than YouTube, and with the way the algorithm works, sometimes you don't know on YouTube whether it's going to go. Sometimes you don't know if it's going to distort and clip when there's no distortion and clipping on the signal going up. There's all kinds of potential problems with YouTube that you don't have with SoundCloud. So it's sort of a balance. You know, what is the best situation? Are you heading off?
Pick up the guys.
Oh, okay.
Eric's on solos.
Okay, all right. So just make sure you're not, make sure you're back for just before 12.
Yep.
Because I'm going to wrap up a little bit before 12. Okay, great. Andrew is going to pick up the band. We're doing a conference call with the label. Because we're doing a conference call with the label. See, there's real work. So we're going to go on a conference call with the label, with the band, and we're going to talk about not so much the production, but about the songs. There's a possibility we'll do some more co-writing on the album to try and get that first single. Everybody's loving the album, but just not sure what the first single is yet. That's business. And that's stuff for us to talk about. That can also talk to you about, in future ones, about dealing with record companies, about dealing with lawyers, about dealing with managers, about dealing with artists. That is tough. So, yes, so what Toby's saying is that switching to SoundCloud for a show reel is really, really good. It's difficult. Yes, you're going to get the trolls and the snobs and everybody that tells you you're wrong. I mean, it's just the way it happens. I did Spotify the other day and listened through the speakers. Could I have used Tidal? Yes. But I have a Spotify account which I pay for. I subtly do push Spotify. I don't tell people, but I believe it is not only the future, it is the present. Spotify is where it is. But for you, I wouldn't. Petter, what I would do is I would just create Spotify playlists. Like, have your website, have an embedded Spotify playlist with all of your work. Create playlists. That's the way to do it. You don't need to have it on Spotify with your own name. If you've worked with 10 different artists, take the best songs, 1 or 2 songs of 10 different artists, and then create a Spotify playlist. Have a heavy rock playlist. Have a metal playlist. Have a rock playlist. Have a country. Have a hip hop. Have a jazz fusion playlist. Whatever it might be, create playlists. I think that will give you a better diversity, and that's the way to go. But SoundCloud, love it or hate it, is still a great way to get stuff done. Reverb Nation, I have a love-hate with. I think the problem for Reverb Nation is they've got a little bit of that CD Baby mentality. They're creating artificial demand. Do you know what I mean? Is this making sense? They sort of create this, like CD Baby does, where they create this illusion that you're in a store and they're selling your music for you, when really they're not. They're just a place where you send information to, and then your fans get sent to CD Baby or sent to Reverb Nation. Reverb Nation nor CD Baby really cultivate the people they're working with. They're just micro... What is that phrase? Can anybody remember what it's called? When you're just literally skimming pennies off of everybody to build a business model. That's really what they're doing. They're not really creating a proper community. There is no... They're just like hosting something in a way that you could do yourself. Nobody goes to Reverb Nation really to search out bands. They just don't. They use you to send your people over there And then they sort of artificially create these charts about like you're the best person in there. There's more data supporting you pushing people there than them pushing people around to different places. It's not terrible. Reverb Nation probably is the better of some of these things. However, I think that you should be spending your time as an artist, a producer, engineer, mixer, songwriter, whatever the different facets that everybody does here. We should be spending our time helping elevate each other, creating your own business Facebook pages, your own SoundClouds, your own Spotify playlists, your own websites. That's where we should be pushing rather than, because here we are, we're the BS cut through. You know what I mean? We can all sit here and help each other and elevate each other, and rather than looking for like a quick solution, like just upload my tracks to this and it's all going to be okay. Because you need the accessibility. Sure, be on Reverb Nation, be in all these different places, of course. But remember, it starts with you. Have a really good Facebook page. Have a good Instagram account. You know, have a Twitter. Twitter doesn't really directly help you. It doesn't, but have one anyway. And interact with each other. Let's all put our socials up here. Let's all make sure that we can, micropayments. There's another word for it, I can't remember. But anyway, yeah, Martin's saying they're using people's dreams to rip them off. Yeah, it's kind of a tough one because it's like pennies are pennies. It's like nobody's like losing millions of dollars doing it, but they are definitely not. There's just a lot of like these kind of business models, and I'm not trying to be negative because I do think you should have your music if you're an artist up on Reverb Nation, but I would say that's the secondary thing to having your own Facebook pages, your own Instagram accounts, your own Twitter. You know. It's like, it's another way. It's another way to have your music hosted. Please start with yourself and what you could do. Yeah, and as Wyatt Wee is saying, let's all help with each other. You know, and don't have any expectations. Don't get mad at each other if you don't share. It doesn't matter. Everybody's busy. Not everybody's good at reposting. This is a community. Don't be mad at each other if I want you all to share my account. It's okay if you don't. Just remember this is a friendly, supportive community. So help each other. With 1,100 people, you're still scratching the surface of the surface of the surface. You know, you could help each other out and repost everybody's music and go crazy for each other. And you're still going to be in a minority that is helping each other and growing super fast, you know. Yeah, but use your social media, connect with each other. See, look at, search each other out. Do you all have my Twitter? Do you all have my Instagram? Do you have, you know, then go in and find each other's and just help each other out and do it. But don't have expectations. Don't get mad at each other if you're not always reposting each other. Be friendly, be real. You're already these things, but yeah. Band website or business website is the best first start. I agree. Monty is correct. Start with yourself. Start promoting yourself directly before you start giving that power away to other people. Because if you start sending 100 people over to Reverb Nation, that's cool, but you're really just diverting it. You can sell your music in many, many different ways outside of it. And to be honest, when you're first starting, I don't even know if I'd be selling anything. I would just get it up on Spotify, get it up on SoundCloud, and get people listening. The best way for you to make money as a producer, an engineer, or even as a musician is to create a fan base, not to monetize a fan base. Build the fan base first, then figure out how you're going to monetize it. Monetizing from record one is not a good idea anymore. You don't want great, you sell 100 CDs this year. I'd much rather have 1,000 email addresses and 1,000 people following you than $1,000 over a year. Because those 1,000 people potentially, like they say, could be $1 a month. 1,000 could be 1,000 a month if cultivated and real fans of yours. I'm not trying to just quote all the marketing terms you've heard. I'm just being honest. That is how some of the bands that are just seemingly coming out of nowhere are built. Bring Me the Horizon, we were talking about the other day, are one of the biggest rock bands in the world that nobody really knows about in the mainstream, that now are just selling out stadiums and the Royal Albert Hall. Because they're like a metal band that's getting more and more pop and building off it. And now their last album is like metal and pop. The one before was like pop. I mean, the new one is like pop metal. The last one was metal pop, but it started off as metal. They have built a core audience of fans that buys t-shirts, goes to shows, and they did not do it in a cynical way. 21 Pilots, the same thing, self-released album. Built a fan base. These are the ways of going. Now, you can be part of that. You could be Mike Crossley. You could be Mike Crossley. Look him up. Go look up Mike Crossey. Crossey. Found the Arctic Monkeys. Developed the Arctic Monkeys. You can be those kind of producers, engineers, and mixers. You can find a local artist. You can take these ideas we're talking about and help guide them to build their own fan bases, and stay away from, tips for building fan base: interaction. Interacting with people, engaging them, treating them with respect, understanding that there's no difference, that I have a lot of acquired knowledge and experiences here, but I'm no better than you. And it's quite possible when we listen to mixes, you have some really great creative ideas that were better than my ideas. Happens all the time. How many times do we listen back to Feedback Friday and go, wow, what a great idea with that delay. What a great idea with that reverse. What a great idea last week with a mute before a chorus. I'd never thought of doing that. I know it sounds so obvious, but I didn't think it was going to work because the track, Hurricane, is an old sounding track, so a mute would be too modern. But it didn't sound too modern. It just sounded really good. So it's not about lowering yourself, because I hate that when people say, oh, you have to come down to your audience's level. That's a big no-no, because that assumes that you think you're above everybody else. BS, total crap. I sit on a train and the people sitting opposite me are the most important people in the world. I remember going, and we can be all different religions and ethnicity here. I don't push religion on anybody, but I remember going to my local priest when I was a kid for my confirmation classes. And it's okay. You don't have to be Christian. You don't have to be Jewish. You don't have to be Muslim. You don't have to be anything. This is not a place where we push religion. We just all have our own beliefs. But I'll tell you, I sat down with my priest, and behind him, it had a sign which said this: there is no one more important in the world than the person sitting opposite me at the moment. There is no one more important in the world or in this world than the person sitting opposite me at the moment. That is a really, really important thing, and I hope that in my best day that comes across. I don't ever want to be one of those people that's like, let me tell you from my years of experience and my superior knowledge, and because it's a bunch of BS. Because Jeff Emmerich, who just died, which of course was very sad because 72 is so young these days, he was 19 coming on 20 when he started on Revolver. And yet, any given day, if I was to put in, let's do it at random. I'm just going to do it in real time. I love this. We're talking in real time. 100 greatest albums. I spelled greatest wrong. Rolling Stones, 100 greatest albums of all time. Number 1, Sgt. Pepper's. Number 2, Pet Sounds. Number 3, Revolver. And it changes the list apparently at all times. Okay, but today in the list, that's the order. 2 of those 3 albums, number 1 and number 3, were engineered and therefore mixed by Jeff Emmerich. If he was 1920 in 1965, 66, would have been 20. It means in 67, when he made Sgt. Pepper's, he was 21. So, I don't care what anybody thinks. I really don't. Because we know the facts. If a 21-year-old sat in a room with the Beatles, who were 23, Lennon was 30 when they broke up in 70. So the oldest member of the band was 27. Emmerich would have been 21 on Sgt. Pepper's. George Martin would have been mid-30s, mid to late 30s. You get where I'm going. Most of the people in that room were 20, 27, 24 years old, 23 or 24 years old for George Harrison, 26 or 25 for Paul McCartney for Sgt. Pepper's. Anyway, you're getting my point. So when, as much as I love us, I'm going to say it because I've been doing it for over 20 years, us old-timers, guys like me that have been making music for over 20 years, our just top 3 albums were made by guys from in their early 20s, early to mid-20s. So this is what's really, really important. So there's no like bring yourself down to the audience. I've even heard some supposed marketing people. It's not about that. It's about engaging. So when you're building your resume and your business, make sure that you engage with people on a level that is of equality. Sometimes the problem I see from people, not in the academy, not at all. This academy seems to only attract the right people. We've only thrown one person out, and those of us following know who that was. It was somebody who was pretending to be somebody they weren't. It's the only person we've thrown out, and we refunded their money 100%, even though they'd been in for 4 or 5 months. It doesn't matter. We refunded the whole money. The point is like we have 1,100 people in here that are all about helping each other and don't feel superior to each other, because we're all human beings and we all have these experiences we can bring. And if a 20-year-old can come in and make one of the top 3 albums of all times, I rest my case. So that's how we need to communicate. So when you're saying building a business, put up your page, put up some music, be humble, be like, hey, here's a new track I work with John, Fred, Frida, blah, blah, blah. It's a heavy rock song inspired by so-and-so. I'm really happy with the results. Please let me know what you think. Put up a song. And then people go, hey, I really love it. You come from a humble place. They'll be like, oh, I really love it. I felt like the snare wasn't loud enough on the second verse. Boom. Creative, helpful. The critique was coming from a good place. The way you phrase a question will get you an answer. Have you seen the politics that we're dealing with here? Again, no left or right politics, not interested in talking politics. We all know that. But have you seen the way that people phrase questions as accusations? You always say this and you always mean that. Why is that? Well, first of all, the question is baseless. It's like saying, well, I don't agree. You know what I mean? So I think that we have to learn from the way that people badly communicate with each other to make it positive. The questions we ask of each other should come from a loving, supportive, and no ego place. That is how you build a business, because you build a business by putting music out there instead of being like, here's a slamming new track I just dropped, bro. If you come across like that, you're telling people already that it's slamming, that it's amazing. That just doesn't work like that. Does any of us as a listener put on an album and believe the hype around it if it's coming directly from the record label or the artist themselves? Of course not. How many times have you seen a movie trailer? I did it with Crocodile Dundee. Are any Australians watching? I know it's the wrong time in the morning. I remember seeing Crocodile Dundee, and I may have talked about this before in another talk, so I apologize. And they showed the knife scene in the trailer, when it's like, that's not a knife, this is a knife, and pulls out this massive knife. And then the other one where there's the crotch grabbing. And then I went to go and see the movie as a kid, and I was disappointed because the 2 funniest moments in the movie were already in the trailer. My point is like, let people make up their own minds. Don't just tell them what to think. Anyway, so that's how you build community, by interacting, engaging with people, doing your own mini version of what we do here in the community. We're all teaching each other how to treat each other. I say this to people that work with me all the time. We teach each other how to treat each other. Remember that. If the way you communicate with somebody is accusational, passive-aggressive, whatever it might be, you may well get that response. But if you treat each other with love and respect, you will get love and respect in return. So bring those principles that you know work in everyday life into what you do, and you will attract people. They will listen to your music. Even if there is a problem, they will offer a suggestion and help, and you will receive that in a great way. Yeah. Okay, great. Something else I remember reading recently, it's important to be humble. Yes. It's also important not to belittle your own work because people pick up on that. Absolutely. You shouldn't be like, I suck. Do you think this is any good? Of course not. You should just be like, what we're talking about, I'm proud of this. I'm happy with this. But then be like, I feel like I learned a lot from this experience. You know, that's the way to communicate. And then people will pick up on that humility, but also identify. Because being humble, the humble brag is like the worst thing. I'm so happy that my best friend has a #1 album. What does that mean? You know what I mean? I see that all the time. A friend of mine is doing so well. He's so incredible, you know. Look at my friend Doreen. She's huge. It's like, you know what I mean? The humble brag. It's like, that's not the place we come from. And if I ever make those mistakes, I'm sure I do. But the reality is like real engagement. So put your music out there, your productions and stuff. Look for opinions within the community. Grow from a place. And you will get great engagement, but you're going to learn so much that way. You're opening yourself up to learn. And remember, nobody can really teach you. You can only learn. Mark Becker says, I have a bit of a philosophical question. When it comes to producing, how much art should one sacrifice for commercial reasons? How much should one be willing to bend a song or an album towards the mainstream sounds? Do you have to be mass compatible if you want to be successful, or will it lead in the wrong direction? According to the motto, yet another Taylor Swift. Do you talk to your artists about it? And if so, why? If you want to be stressful, or would it lead to the wrong direction according to the motto, But I don't know. You see, yeah, there's some interesting stuff there. I think that Taylor Swift, lover or hater, started off, we could have people disagree with me, but I'm hoping that you won't. I think Taylor Swift's an interesting one because I think Taylor Swift started off as a very, very young, credible country artist. Was she the best artist ever in the history of country music? No, of course she wasn't. I don't think she thinks that. I don't think anybody thinks that. But she was a credible country artist. So at what point do we make that distinction? So I think I think you have to look at, the reason why I'm focusing on that, and I know it's only part of your question, is to answer the rest of your question. Because if I'm working with an artist, I want them, if they want to be Taylor Swift, they have to work on that. They have to work on that career building structure. So if you've got a young girl, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 years old, a teenage girl coming in, working on songs, you're co-writing them, you're producing them, who are they trying to be? Do they want to be Taylor Swift? Sure. But they can't start off trying to be Taylor Swift, Max Martin Productions, Ryan Tedder, welcome to New York, welcome to New York. It's not going to be a hit. They could write welcome to New York, and put it out, and it will not be a hit because they have no groundswell, they have nothing to build on to get the focus on the song. Yes, the song is a good song. It's definitely not one of the best songs Ryan Tedder's ever written, but it's a good song. But it's a good song sung by an artist who's a megastar, Taylor Swift, who built a career. So yes, you do need to work on the commercial aspect, but it should be part of the story. Exactly. Simon says, plus if they want to be Taylor Swift, they probably need to work as hard as she does. Taylor Swift gets a lot of criticism from people I respect. I like Bob Lefsetz's blog. I recommend it to people all the time. But he does come down really heavily on Taylor Swift. There's a lot of YouTube videos talking about how controlling she is and stuff. However, I would be fine. My daughter's only 4, but I'd be fine with my daughter being a Taylor Swift fan. I would be fine with my daughter being a Taylor Swift fan. I have never seen any inappropriate stuff with Taylor Swift, ever. If she wears dresses that are revealing, they're slightly revealing, and they're never revealing in a way that would make me feel uncomfortable of a woman who's in her early 20s or mid-20s as she is now. There's nothing, when she was a teenager, she never did that. So if people saying that she's controlling, means that she is, you know, doesn't want to show like inappropriate stuff, doesn't want to have lyrics which are inappropriate, then you know what? God bless her. I think she's doing something that really, you know, really helps people and makes it comfortable, and makes me feel confident that it's okay for girls to listen to her music. I think, honestly, I don't give a rat's if she's criticizing John Mayer in a song and he got all, as people say, butthurt about it. John Mayer has a reputation in this town for being a massive womanizer. And all the girls that he's always dating, he's always got like other girls on the side, even when he's dating the famous ones. This is like a sort of one of those things. If you want to go meet, I'm not saying he's been inappropriate and he's part of a Me Too movement, but as far as like being a bit of a man, whatever, yeah, he's been out there. So why, you know, suddenly he like says in the Rolling Stone that he felt hurt that she mentioned him by name in a song. I mean, I kind of want my daughter to be a little empowered. So my point is like, I think looking at Taylor Swift's career as a whole is actually a good thing. So take your artist and go talk about the commerciality, as Dr. John used to call it commerciability. Look at the commerciability, but look at it as a whole. So what I would say, Mark, is look at your artist and see where they are in their life and their career and build something like a Taylor Swift. I'm not saying mirror it exactly, but look at like the idea. Yeah, I mean, Eric's saying being in control of your work, isn't that a good thing? And if she were a guy, would they call her controlling? Yeah, very, very true. That's very true. I think that's a phrase that we use for women all the time. We call women controlling. And I'm not like super freaking, you know, ultra progressive dude that always goes and like, I'm not that guy. I don't call people out. You know, that's not my style. I believe very much in like raising people up. I don't, you know, by empowering them, not by ultra compensating for it. I think that we have quite a few girls in our academy, women in our academy, because we treat everybody equally. We don't pinpoint and like give them extra special treatment, and because that's patronizing. We just make everybody feel the same. And I think what Taylor is able to do is, love her or hate her, and you don't have to like her music, is basically be respectful to her fan base. And goodness, she knows how to communicate with her fan base on a great level. So I think, Mark, it's a great question. I don't want to get off the commercial aspect of what you're talking about, but I think it's important to like identify your artist, where they are at, and then build with it. Now, if they're a bunch of guys and girls in their 40s, then trying to do disposable teenage pop music is not going to work. I'm going to work with Caden Cashmere's mother. She is in her late 50s. Sorry to call you out on that, Brenda. She's in her late 50s. Derek might be watching this. I think she's in her late 50s, maybe mid to late 50s. Sorry. I don't want to make her older. We're not going to do like 6415 pop songs. We're going to write songs, but we're going to come from a bluesy, rootsy area because it suits her voice and it suits her age group and it suits everything about her. She's got life and experiences to bring to the music. If I've got a teenage girl in like 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, that age group, I can skew younger. I can be a little bit more commercial. However, I don't want to come out with something that's so insipid and disposable that nobody takes them seriously. It's all about what is right for the artist. One of the problems I find, and the realities I find with a lot of producers, like in LA in particular, is they only do pop music. And that they're being selfish. They're being very selfish. They're producing songs that they might get cuts with. So an artist comes in, could be 15, could be 50, and they're going to give you the same 6-4-1-5 chord progression, the same explosions, all of that stuff. They're going to give you all of the same things because ultimately their goal is to try and get top 10 singles. However, it might not always be the best thing for the artist. So it's really a discussion. I think one of those things that we could maybe expand upon is probably, and I'm down to do this in one-on-one sessions as well. This is like a bigger view, but in a one-on-one session, if anybody wants to do those as well, what we can do is we can listen to an artist and I could give you advice on direction. And then I can sort of executive produce with you and work on it. Scott, who's watching here, we took some of his songs and really brought them up to a really high level. But now we're talking about, like, you know, on the radio format he's going for, we're talking about how do we compete in that radio format with his songs. He's a great, Scott Chandler is a great, or Chandler as I would say, is a great songwriter, but and singer and very talented musician. But now he's thinking he has to compete in a world that's for his format and his age group. So these are the things that we need to know. We look at media base, we look at the songs that are in the charts of your genre and think, how do you get on it? So the question is really, Mark, it's what's best for the artist. And if they want the Taylor Swift career, not that you were saying this, so I apologize, I'm not trying to just pinpoint that, but I think she's a good example. At which point of Taylor's career are they at? Is it the growth period, credible artists, writing songs about relationships that other girls of their age group can identify with? Or is it the where she's at now, where she's at like this massive worldwide sensation that she can just go for pop songs? At which point is she at? Which point is he at? Which, you know, these are the things that so all right, so yeah, a lot to answer there. And if any of you want to do one-on-one, we can do that too. Okay, Jason King says, what types of insurance should I consider when opening a small studio space? I have separate insurance for my studio. It's quite expensive, but I did it. We took an inventory of all of my equipment, but I went to my home insurer and told them what it was and did it that way. I did it with my home insurance. I spoke to my business manager who manages lots of producers and engineers. She also manages Irving Azoff. So she's quite a big business manager. You know, Irving Azoff and Jimmy Iovine are the two biggest music moguls in America, and she manages one of them. And I asked the question, and they said, itemize, go to your home insurance and tell them what you're doing. Because if you don't, and you don't do it with your home insurance, if there's a break-in and they go, oh, you were running a business? We didn't cover for that. You've got to do it legitimately. I personally went to my, it was Allstate, and I did it with them. Okay, last question from Clint McLean says, what is the best platform to use to get the music out there and heard? I think, personally, it's DistroKid. And DistroKid, build your website up, build your web presence, build all that kind of stuff. Oh, Mike. Oh, no, Mark, I know you don't, I didn't think that you don't respect Taylor Swift. I apologize for focusing a lot on it, but it was a really good question for you to include Taylor Swift because her career was, I believe, a very, very well managed, not controlled, but very well managed. I think she is a great example of what artists should be doing. And I use her all the time to point artists to like how she handles social media. It's impeccable. She does an amazing job. I'm just checking. Because I have a conference call soon. Okay. We're going to... So the best platform is DistroKid. I do have a manager. I have a producer manager who handles paperwork, billing stuff, etc. I tend to still get most of my own work. That's just the way it is, but they handle all the business side of it. I have a business manager, which is essentially an accountant, which pays bills, looks after stuff. You know, that's really where we're at. I'm going to go. Yeah. As Sheila's saying, Taylor Swift learned the business, marketing, and technology, created apps, and that's smart to me. Oh no, am I the biggest Taylor Swift music fan? Not really. I don't listen to Taylor Swift. Am I a fan of her and the way she runs her business and how respectful she is and how clean it is and how transparent it is and the fact that I am fine with my 4-year-old? She hasn't listened to Taylor Swift yet, but if she decides to become a Taylor Swift fan, I'm absolutely fine with it. I think as a parent, wow, what more can you say, really, you know? Okay, everybody, you have been absolutely amazing. Thank you for all being an incredible part of this community and helping each other out. We're going to try and do this every Wednesday. Hopefully that will work out. There'll be times where I'm making an album, recalling mixes, something where it will happen where it won't. But I think this is a massively important part of what we do. And again, if you want to book me independently to do mix critiques, to talk about production, to do business stuff, we do that. I'm usually very expensive, but I have a lower rate, and it's probably still expensive for you, but it will be 100% about you, and we do $150 an hour. I know that most marketing guys charge $1,500 an hour, but it's $150 an hour if you want to do that. I don't really talk about it that much because I don't really like selling. But the reality is if you do want to send me a song with an artist and send me an email with background and you want advice about how to produce it and what to bring in, and you want to get information about different people to work with and whatever, I can give you all of that stuff. You will have access to a guy that lives and works in Los Angeles and makes albums that you've heard of in a very unique way. But I will still give free information away as often as I can like this, and I love you all. This is an amazing community. Have a marvelous time recording and mixing. And I'll see you all again very, very soon. Thanks a lot.